The iPhone 16 Pro was created for people who want a powerful camera packed into what they carry around every day. The Fuji X-M5 was created as an entry-level camera that introduces people to a new world of creative control and want to step up their image quality game. My question going into this comparison is, did they make the X-M5 compelling enough and budget-friendly enough for someone who wants to jump from an iPhone to a dedicated camera? Here, take a look at this beat shot and see if you can tell the difference on which camera got which shot. Maybe I shouldn't say see a difference because there's clearly a difference in the colors, but which one do you like better? I used the kit lens on the Fujifilm X-M5 and the 1X camera on the iPhone 16 Pro. Both cameras were shooting in their standard color profiles, and I was shooting in 4K 24. Here's another shot I got of this fountain in 4K 60 with both of these cameras. And you can see that during the daylight morning hour, you can't really differentiate which camera has better image quality because there's enough light hitting the subject. However, when we go into the low light hours, that's when you start to see a huge difference. I'm shooting the same exact fountain at the same exact time at low light hours, and take a look how different that shot is. Can you take a wild guess on which one has the smaller sensor? And to take it one step further, let's put both images up side by side and run them back and forth like this. You can really see which one is the 16 Pro in low light hours. We're going to look at how the iPhone 16 Pro and the Fujifilm X-M5 analyze external light and interpolate the light into digital imagery in different lighting environments. You'll notice that the lower the lumens the iPhone 16 has to work with, the worse off the image quality will be. This video is not sponsored by Apple, Fuji, or by anybody. I bought both of these cameras with my own money, but if you'd like to support me and you use the affiliate links in the description to purchase some of your camera gear, then that would be greatly appreciated. This comparison is going to focus on their image quality, their versatility, and who both of these cameras are for. If you're curious about how both of these cameras' images and footage will perform in your editing workflows, I've created a free project file for you to download. It includes a range of footage including Apple Log with the 16 Pro and F-Log with the X-M5, with various frame rates and resolutions and some photography shots. This way you can edit your image as you follow along this video. I'll leave a link to that project file pack in the description. Alright, we're about to run the gauntlet with both of these cameras and do it as fast as possible. Today, on the Film Alliance. The iPhone 16 Pro is a 48 megapixel sensor that can shoot in 4K up to 120 frames per second, and it can shoot in Apple Log. It weighs 199 grams and it comes with fixed lenses with multiple focal lengths and a huge display for viewing your shot, and it starts at $999 US. The X-M5 has a 26 megapixel sensor that can shoot in 4K up to 60 frames per second or 6K up to 30 frames per second in open gate. It can shoot in F-Log and it weighs almost 355 grams body alone, which is almost double the weight of the iPhone 16 Pro. It comes as an interchangeable lens camera and it has the Fujifilm simulations that are so popular, and it starts at $799 US body only. By the way, if you like the Fujifilm look that you get out of Fuji cameras, I created LUTs that emulate 5 Fujifilm simulations for the iPhone 16 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro. I'll leave a link to those LUTs in the description. Both the iPhone 16 Pro and the Fuji X-M5 were both released in the same year of 2024, so both cameras have all of the latest tech from this time period. If you recognized which camera was which in those initial shots at the start of the video, well done. I will continue to incorporate comparisons and their full screen shots throughout this video so we can clearly illustrate the differences in image quality and their colors. The Fuji X-M5 is an entry-level camera designed to show people that there's more to video and photography than just using your smartphone. I already knew that, but I was reminded of it while I was out and about shooting with it. For this shot, I looked up and saw this awesome morning shot of the flag being hit by the sunlight, and everything else was kind of in the shadows. I would have never noticed this or pulled out my phone to get that shot, but since I had my camera with me, I was already in creator mode, so I decided to pull it out and get the shot. But as you can see, when the subject was well lit, both images look very similar. Or have a look at this backlit shot. The sun is just out of the frame, pointing directly at both lenses, and when I compare these two images, the difference in quality isn't that noticeable. This test is insightful because it shows how each camera's sensor responds to the direct light and allows us to see how the vibrancy of the colors dissipate. So both cameras are very capable, but we are interested in how they differentiate. If by the end of this video, you're still undecided about which one of these two cameras you should purchase, I made 2 free quizzes on which camera or lens you should purchase. This quiz will ask you specific questions, and based on your answers, funnel you to the camera or lens that is best for you. I'll leave a link to that quiz in the description. The iPhone 16 Pro is sleek, compact, and incredibly versatile. However, there are times when I yearn for that tactile experience or creative control that I get with a dedicated camera like the X-M5. It has a classic design, an okay grip, and physical dials and buttons, which offers a satisfying shooting experience. Changing the settings on the outside of the camera is pretty easy, and I appreciate not having to rely on the touchscreen or the menu system in order to change the settings like I do with the 16 Pro. Although the iPhone is highly portable and convenient, the X-M5 offers a presence that motivates me to approach photography and videography with more intention. Kind of like that flagpole shot. When you look up and you see this perfect world type of shot of this post office and somebody riding by with their bike, you go, I got my camera with me, I want to capture that. Whereas I may not be in creator mode if I have only my phone with me. The Fuji X-M5 encourages me to slow down, observe my surroundings, and then produce more meaningful images and videos and get my composition right. I rarely venture out with my phone to go take videos and photos. Usually this is just with me to capture memories while I'm on the go. But that doesn't mean that that's all it's good for. The X-M5 is larger than the iPhone by quite a bit, particularly when you add a lens to it. When you're out and about with your X-M5, you're probably also going to need a dedicated camera bag, whereas with your phone, you can just slip it into your pocket. But the advantage of interchangeable lens cameras like this one will offset a lot of that issue, in my opinion. We'll talk about that later in the video. For this comparison, I used the standard Viltrox 23mm f1.4 lens for some morning sun shots as my everyday carry lens and some water landscapes. This lens works great with the X-M5, making it a great travel companion. I also used the wide lens, the Viltrox 13mm f1.4 for some low light shots, some Christmas lights, and night shots whenever I needed to maximize the amount of light that was available. I also used the kit lens on the X-M5 as if I was a beginner and I was on a budget and I couldn't afford higher quality glass. When you add those extra lenses on the end of the X-M5, it significantly increases the price of what you would pay, with the exception of the kit lens. When I add the kit lens to the X-M5, that total setup costs me about $899 US, whereas with the iPhone 16 Pro, I'm over $1,000, even with the lowest memory settings. You can zoom in with the 16 Pro or get some wide shots by pulling way back, but I find that the best image quality comes when I use the 1x camera. For this shot, I got at the golden hour. I could have had gone wide with the 16 Pro, but once I saw what the frame looked like, I left it at 1x. One negative about the X-M5 is how the grip on the actual camera is oriented. It's not very big, so I'd have to exert force on both sides in order to make sure that I'm gripping the camera. And when I do this, I inadvertently hit some of the buttons on the back here, which isn't what I want to do. This is one of the reasons why I highly recommend you pick up a cage for your X-M5, like this small rig cage. That way you can grip the camera better from the front and the side rather than having to grip the back of the camera and hitting those buttons. They did send this cage to me at no cost, but they didn't ask me to talk about it. I will link it in the description below. But straight out of the box, the buttons and dials on the X-M5 unlock a vast range of creative possibilities that a smartphone simply cannot replicate. When it comes to the grip on the iPhone, I have dropped it a few times already. That's why I highly recommend that you pick up some type of phone case for it if you plan on using it as a creative tool rather than just using it as a phone. Actually, even if you're using it as a phone, I highly recommend you pick up a phone case for it because you don't want to drop this thing. They're already pretty expensive and phone cases are fairly cheap nowadays. Whatever camera it is that you decide to land on, make sure you learn the actual camera thoroughly. It can be very frustrating when you go out to get your shot, maybe you set it up on a tripod or it's oriented in a weird situation and you can't figure out a certain exposure tool. The last thing that you want to happen is you get frustrated because then you won't be as creative anymore. I can't tell you how many times this has happened to me, so learn whatever camera it is that you have. While the iPhone's menu system is easy to use and all you really have to do is press record, the X-M5 offers a lot more customization and control. Fujifilm's menu system is a bit more of a learning curve, but it's not overly complex. One of the X-M5's most significant advantages over the iPhone 16 Pro is the fact that you can swap out your batteries and your SD cards. This will eliminate the anxiety of running out of power or storage when you're out filming with your iPhone. This is a concern that I always have whenever I take this out. And the X-M5 has several ports, micro HDMI, a USB-C, a headphone port, and a mic port for external audio and inputs. You can do a lot of that with the USB-C port on the bottom of the 16 Pro, but it only has one of them. I found that the 16 Pro is undeniably a more convenient and easy to use camera for beginners. However, accessing more advanced features like Apple Log will require a deeper dive into the settings. We're going to talk more about log profiles later in the video once we get into image quality. But for now, it's a lot easier to use. Mastering the X-M5's buttons and dials will require more of a learning curve. But hey, we want you to jump from your iPhone to a more dedicated camera, and this is a great camera to jump into because the resulting creative control that you're going to get is highly rewarding. It took me a few days to customize it and get to the point where I felt like I was comfortable with it, but after I got to that point, I was in good standing. Now, I come from Sony cameras, so that task was a little bit daunting trying to figure out the outside and the inside of the Fuji X-M5, but it's not too bad. The fully articulating touchscreen on the X-M5 is particularly a powerful and useful tool if you want to capture low-angle shots or vlog shots, which can be very difficult if you're trying to catch a low-angle shot with your iPhone. Too many times I've had this close to the ground and I have to almost break my back to see what the display is showing. Or while I was filming this vlog shot, I wasn't sure if I was clipping the top of my head because I couldn't see the display. Like I had already mentioned, one of the best parts about this camera compared to the 16 Pro is all the customization that you can do. You can adjust exposure, focus, frame rates, and resolution, all outside of the camera without having to dive into the menu, unlike the more limited native camera app. However, to fully leverage the X-M5, you need a basic understanding on exposure, because you can throw this thing into auto mode, but if you do, it probably will produce very similar results to your iPhone 16 Pro. So if you get this camera, I would say learn exposure so that you can really utilize and take advantage of all the features that it offers. The X-M5 offers Fujifilm's film simulations, which is accessible at this dedicated dial up here at the top, and these simulations provide a variety of aesthetically pleasing options, enhancing creative expression. Where you don't have any creative options with the iPhone 16 Pro, you have to shoot the way that it shoots right out of camera unless you're using Apple Log. It does have some creative options, but that's only with photography. Maybe we're gonna get an update and then we'll be able to have creative options with video, hopefully in the future. One huge advantage the iPhone has over the Fujifilm X-M5 is its stabilization system is significantly superior. The X-M5 stabilization is less effective and it can be problematic for handheld shooting. Both cameras have digital or electronic stabilization, which could also present a problem if you're in a low light situation or you're shooting at night. As you can see in these walking night shots of the Christmas lights, the Fuji X-M5 has that jello effect or that warping effect all up in that light area. The 16 Pro also has some issues, but it's not as bad as the X-M5. The X-M5, being a dedicated camera, utilizes a larger sensor, which contributes to better stability and less noticeable artifacts in those low light conditions. But when the sun is out, the electronic stabilization in the 16 Pro is a lot better. The 16 Pro can shoot in 4K up to 120 frames per second, and the X-M5 can only shoot in 4K up to 60 frames per second. But let's be honest, when is the last time that you used 4K 120? Now, some people may use it all the time for certain niche situations, but I can't remember the last time that I used 4K 120, but it is nice that I have it. The X-M5 can also shoot in 6K up to 30 frames per second. This is huge for those of you who like to shoot in 6K. It also tells me that the X-M5 is more future-proof than the 16 Pro. But one of the biggest advantages that you get with your Fuji X-M5 is the fact that it can shoot in Blackmagic RAW, which is an amazing feature for people who want to get the most out of the dynamic range of this camera. Now let's consider the pricing of both of these cameras and some budgetary considerations. The iPhone 16 Pro at 128 gigabytes of memory starts at $999 US. In comparison to that Fujifilm X-M5 body alone, it costs $799, like we already talked about. But if you add the kit lens to that order, it'll only be an extra $99. You also have to pick up the proper SD card and some extra batteries. You may end up closer to that $900 US mark. Although the 16 Pro and the X-M5 are similar in out-the-door pricing, you're gonna wanna invest in some extra accessories like we already talked about, a cage, maybe a protective case for your iPhone, and a screen protector for the display. Maybe even for this one as well. But the best thing that you can do for your display is always close it with the glass facing inward. Only have the glass facing outward if you're shooting with that, but don't leave it like this in your camera bag because it will break. Also, if you intend on shooting an Apple Log with your iPhone, you're gonna need to invest in an external SSD or choose a model with greater storage, maybe 256 gigabytes for $1,099 US or 512 gigabytes for $1,299 US. While this will increase the total cost, the Fujifilm system still tends to be much more expensive in comparison. If you're interested in improving your video creation skills and learning more about cameras like these, then make sure to join the Film Alliance by subscribing. The 16 Pro offers Apple log capabilities, which is huge for those of you who want to do heavy color correction in post-production. As you can see in this morning sunshot, the images don't look far off from each other, but once you get into post-production, that's when you really start to see the greater flexibility both of these cameras have when you're using their log profiles. For those of you who own the phone and you want greater exposure control, then you can always download the Blackmagic camera app or a third-party app that gives you more control over your exposure. This way you can upload LUTs to your phone and actually view what the LUTs look like in the display while you're filming. Both cameras worked great for overhead shots, but the 16 Pro needed to be connected to an external monitor so I could actually see what I was doing. But the colors and the skin tones out of both of these cameras in their standard color profile was passable. Also, take a look at the colors of this low light shot of the sunset over the ocean. If I didn't tell you which one of these two cameras got that shot, would you have known? I know I probably wouldn't have known, unless I scaled in and then I would really start to see the noise on the 16 Pro. The X-M5 will almost always surpass the iPhone in image quality when we are in low light situations, primarily due to its larger sensor size. The X-M5's APS-C sensor dwarfs the iPhone sensor. You can really start to see a big difference when we look at these shots that I got at night. In lighting environments where the light hitting the iPhone sensor is diminished, you're gonna get more noise and more of that washed out, jello-y look. Now, in some cases, as long as you stand very still, you won't be able to tell that much of a difference. It really becomes more of a problem if you're moving or you're zooming in with the iPhone. The X-M5 will have better low light performance with less noise and greater dynamic range, as well as richer color depth and accuracy. Also, look at the saturation on the radio of this macro shot. When I'm in control of the lighting, I can get the iPhone to look pretty good. The larger sensor on the X-M5 will also make it easier to achieve a shallower depth of field. But beyond the sensor size, the X-M5's interchangeable lens system provides access to a wide range of high quality Fujifilm lenses, which are each optimized for different purposes. Dedicated lenses will offer superior optics and create more flexibility when you're out in the field to give you more creative freedom. With the iPhone, you can zoom in, but you're gonna diminish the image quality. While iPhones have made impressive achievements in image quality, dedicated cameras like the X-M5 still hold a distinct advantage when it comes to maximizing your image quality and your creative control. Also, the X-M5 features touch tracking autofocus, which aids in maintaining focus on moving subjects. The iPhone 16 Pro's fixed aperture lens simplifies focusing, especially for distant subjects, but it gives you less creativity when it comes to your focus. The X-M5 is targeted at beginners who are seeking that compact and stylish camera look, and it has a great image quality, and it's pretty easy to use. It combines that retro aesthetic look, it has intuitive controls, and it has a lot of advanced capabilities like 6K video recording, making it almost the perfect camera for those of you who are transitioning from a smartphone to a dedicated camera. The iPhone 16 Pro caters to users who prioritize portability and convenience. Its ever-present nature and capable camera system make it well suited for shooting just spontaneous moments, like if you want to capture a quick memory. For casual video recording and everyday photography, the 16 Pro simplicity and portability make it an excellent choice. However, for someone who wants to be a little bit more serious about their craft and they want to have more control, the X-M5 starting out under $1,000 with its kit lens is a great place to start. It's clear that the 16 Pro and the Fujifilm X-M5 have their strengths and their weaknesses. The phone excels in portability and ease of use, making it ideal for everyday photography and video. Its advanced features like ProRes recording and impressive image stabilization make it surprisingly capable for even serious content creators. On the other hand, the X-M5 offers a more traditional photographic experience with its tactile controls, the fact that you can interchange lenses, and also the fact that you get those Fujifilm simulations, which are so popular. While it does require a greater understanding of how photographic principles work and how exposure works, it's a great gateway into photography and even into video. Ultimately, the best choice depends on your individual needs and priorities. If you value convenience and portability and user-friendly experience, go with the 16 Pro. However, if you want to step up your game, go with the Fujifilm X-M5. For me, if I could only choose one of these two, I would pick up the Fujifilm X-M5 and a flip phone. Thanks for watching this video, and let me know in the comments what cameras you would like me to compare next. See you in the next one. One of the most asked questions that I receive is, which camera should I buy? I know that you want to make the right decision, and it's a big decision. You want to find the camera that best suits your needs and stays within your budget. Many of you know which camera might be for you, but you need some guidance pinpointing it and feeling confident in your decision. That's why I made this course. I want to put my camera experience and knowledge into a compact and easy to follow format. I jam-packed it with camera buying fundamentals that I guarantee you will carry through the rest of your camera journey. I base this entire course on all the things that I wish I had known or someone had told me when I first started out. From understanding different camera types and their features to matching them with your specific video and photography needs, this course covers it all. After finishing, I'm confident that you'll finally have clarity over every angle and aspect that you might consider when buying a camera. I'll guide you through my entire camera buying process, taking you 90% of the way there. That way you'll be well prepared to make your decision. This is essentially all the guidance that I would give my own brother if he asked me, "Hey Joe, which camera should I buy?" Now I'm going to share that insight with you.